What's up, guys? This is Crossface. It's been a really long time since I have done any kind of videos or anything like that. Super caught up with being a father and just different things. Anyway, there's been some people reaching out to me, wanting me to answer some questions, whatever. And I'll be honest that I have lost most of those. Uh, I'll have to check them out and everything like that. However, recently, this past year, my local school, the local high school, I'm not a teacher. However, they started a D&D club. There's an after-school program, and I am friends with the person who started it, one of the teachers. It was so successful that they needed someone else to come in and do it. So I volunteered. Well, they asked me, so I volunteered my time to do that. And I had to go get a background check, fingerprints, and all that stuff like that, But I was very happy to do it because it was the first year this has ever happened. Who knew that my little podunk town would have a Dungeons and Dragons club? And the game that they started with was 5th edition. So I came in and I helped run 5th edition. I had about, I don't know, anywhere from, I think I probably ended up having about 8 to 10 people, depending on, not all at once, but they were a rotating cast. And it was pretty cool. So anyway, today I'm going to go into some stuff. I know the camera's a little close and everything, but today I'm going to go into some stuff because another friend of mine recently, he lives out in the Carolinas. I do not. There was a local game store that opened up right by him, and they wanted him to come in and run 5th edition. So it was a similar situation to what I have experienced, because both of us are much more something like this. I am much more, let's see, I don't have it handy, but I'm much more like a Hyperborea person or other games. However, I have some thoughts about how you can run 5th edition pretty decently anyway, in my opinion, especially if you're under a situation where you are asked to run it without, any say-so or anything like that as far as like what system goes. Many of you have probably found me on this channel due to my 5th edition stuff, because I do have some thoughts on it, and it's different than the majority of probably what you've seen online. However, let's just dive right into it. These are like 10 ideas of things that I have done for the club that help my game run smoothly and stuff like that. Like I said, 8 to 10 people. We only had like 2 hours to run a game, so you had to get going. And these are all quality of life things. So we're going to start out, and 90%, I'm going to get back to this. 90% of the stuff has been in here, and then also probably 90% of the stuff I'm going to talk about today I've already talked about, but it's good to have a refresher. So we're going to start out on page 270. There's going to be a lot of flipping, so bear with me. We're going to go to 270 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Let's see. There we go. So we have initiative variants here, okay? And you got side initiative. So what this is, for people who don't know, one side rolls a d20, then the other side rolls a d20, and the highest side goes first. So there's no dexterity modifier on that or anything. So what I would do is I would say, hey, you guys roll initiative. They would roll, I would roll, and whoever goes first. There's something that I do slightly different than what this here, and it's only because it is more of an old school thing, is we rolled initiative every round. So it's not just one time at the beginning of combat. It's you roll, I roll, and then say the player characters win and I lose initiative. They go first. Then I'll go second. Then we re-roll initiative. I could win that second round of initiative and then end up going 2 times in a row. I find that it's my favorite form of initiative outside of, there's an extended version of that I didn't use that takes in consideration the actions that you're doing, like shooting, bow or moving or melee, whatever. However, what I did is I just did side initiative, but I rolled every round. I think that you should try that out. It's probably one of my biggest 5th edition hacks, air quotes, hacks to do. So, secondly, another thing that I did that kind of, it's funny that I didn't realize that most of this stuff is combat related. This was probably my biggest. I think this was my video on the single best thing you could do for your 5th edition combat is morale. So we use this. I use this quite a bit. So because I use a lot of random encounters, and with random encounters from the Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which I talk about here in a second, you have your battles, your combats aren't balanced by CR. You're just throwing them out there. So how this work is, this is a creature might flee under the following circumstances. It got surprised, which I didn't do, but that's interesting. Reduced to half points or fewer. I did do that here and there sparingly. They are just getting mopped. That's another one. So there's a group might flee under the following circumstances. I did this more so than this. I did use just the single ones every so often, but I usually did the group. The group was surprised. See, I didn't do that. But the group leader is reduced to 0 HP. I have done that. Incapacitated, taken prisoner, removed from battle. The group is reduced to half its original size. With no losses on the opposing side. I just did half of the original size, usually down to maybe 1/3 of the original size, and then I would roll morale. They would either surrender on the spot, which can offer some role playing, especially because this is a junior high school group, right? That's interesting to have some role playing with them, and basically, I don't know. This is a way to not have a slog. Like I said, 2 hours. We don't have a lot of time. There's no reason to have a slog. Anyway, this is page 273 on the DMG. Feel free to read this. This is the number one thing I feel like that can help your combats outside of side initiative. Another thing here in the DMG, like I said, the majority of this stuff is going to be in the DMG. The proficiencies. We did not, since we had to create characters really quickly, especially because we had a lot of death. We had a lot of death in the club. So we had to create characters really quickly. We did not do skill proficiencies. So, however, what I kind of did is I kind of leaned into this ability check by your class. So if you're a barbarian, you're going to be more likely to have like a strength bonus in certain situations, like the wizard or the magic users would have more to identify, like arcana checks, stuff like that. Just use your common sense. But I did not give a lot of proficiency out to skills. I think that's actually, I'm not a big fan. I know that might be controversial. That's probably the hot take of the video. However, I'm not huge on non-weapon proficiencies. You can have your weapon proficiencies. I'm not big on skill proficiencies. Your mileage may vary. However, I did like doing the class-based bonuses. I don't like doing just a blanket everything, like the ranger would get, whatever. But I did like some of them. Like, you just use your common sense, like I said. Let's see. Now we're flipping way back here. This is something that I found that it should make sense to do, but I find people don't do this often enough anyway. And that is these treasure hoards. So we would roll treasure hoards. This is an individual. These are treasure hoards here. I would roll when they went into dungeons or lairs or whatever. We would roll on the appropriate challenge rating treasure hoard. And they can roll all the way up and get their magic items, whatever. And don't worry about magic items breaking your game. They aren't. The reason that the magic items are in the game is because that's part of Dungeons and Dragons. And especially if you're taking away skill proficiencies and you're doing more lethal combat, like I've talked about with wandering monsters and whatnot, they need some stuff to kind of like sway it back in their favor a little bit. I mean, I know this is more of a super heroic version of Dungeons and Dragons. However, I feel like if you play it correctly, the other side is also super heroic. And anyway, roll for your magic because you might see some stuff, or roll for your treasure because you might end up getting some stuff that's actually really cool. For instance, in the game, they end up getting, what hell did they end up getting? They end up getting a Pearl of Power, which end up helping the spellcasters do some healing. It was a lot of stuff. I'm going to get into that a little bit more later. But I also kind of gave them a little bit of hard time doing the identification. They had to pay some people to identify magic, stuff like that. Or they had to drink the potions, which weren't always good ideas. Let's see. So continuing the thought of magic items or treasure hoards, sentient items. I ended up having a barbarian have a wish who ended up getting the sentient sword Stormbringer, which you can see the kind of almost the equivalent here is Black Razor. He ended up getting Stormbringer, and it was an issue. However, what I'm trying to say is these aren't in the treasure hoard, so you'll have to figure this out. Like I said, the reason mine came in was from a wish. He wished for the most powerful sword he could get, so that's what it was. But anyway, you could do artifacts and stuff like that. These aren't in the regular treasure hoards. I do feel like that they add value to the game, and it's something to play around with. It's not going to break your game. All right. Switching it up just a bit. I've already mentioned this stuff a little bit. We're already on number 6. So that was all 1 through 5 there. So this is the number 6 thing that I did. And I've already mentioned it, but check for random encounters, dude. Like, the amount of people who don't do this in 5th edition, at least that I've talked to. I know people do it. I know everyone plays with all the weird different rules, but the amount that I see that people don't do stuff like this is crazy. Especially because probably it's just like kind of tucked away in the book somewhere, whatever. But I always check. It says you can check however many you want, whatever. But I tend to check. Once a day and then once at night. So, and you can use the D20 check here. I actually ended up using the D6. The D6, 1 out of 6, is the same percentage chance for the most part as 18, 19, and 20 out of the D20. So anyway, I did that. And so when they did have random encounters, I would not use this. I don't have the Xanathar's Guide to Everything handy, but you've seen me use that before. I would go to the appropriate Xanathar's Guide to Everything chart, and we would use that. And sometimes, depending on if it was a dangerous location, I might roll a little bit more of a difficult CR for them, and that had positive results because, and I guess I should talk about this right now, because what I did, and it's not exactly the same in 5th edition, so I'm going to go ahead and break out. This is Old School Essentials, but you could probably find this chart pretty much anywhere. Probably Basic Fantasy role-playing game has it, and that's free. But this is a monster reaction chart. You roll 2d6, and it kind of determines how the monster is going to react to your party. The reaction rolls are huge. So when you combine that with random encounters, and you can get a random reaction, that has helped the party out multiple times. There was a hill giant it's a long story. I'll have to probably do a video talking about some of the exploits that end up happening. We did end up having just insane stuff happen due to random encounters, wishes, random reaction rolls, just different things. The players, man, had a blast. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but use this. So number 7, we already passed this, but low-level followers, we did use some, or adventure NPCs. I didn't use them a lot, but we did end up having some henchmen. During one point, they did end up having a high-level fighter as a henchman. When I say high-level, I mean it was not level 1. I mean, I think it was like level 4, which, for a level 4 to 5 party, another level 4 henchman was huge, they ended up having that through happenstance as well. So all this that I'm talking about, I didn't give to the players. It was all just kind of emergent. Number 8, there's not really a rule in here, but you will have to figure it out eventually if you want to have truly emergent gameplay. And it's not in this either, but I use this just as handy, which was mass combat. At one point, and don't be afraid of mass combat, and I'll probably detail how to run mass combat in a later video, but at one point, one of the PCs ended up as the ruler, and like I said, this is all emergent. I didn't make this happen. It was a circumstance that happened. One of the PCs, his name was Beef Buzz. He was a barbarian. He ended up the ruler of a party of goblins, and I think they had 40-some goblins that was loyal to death to him. They ended up having a random encounter with a hill giant. Circumstances happened, yada yada yada. Eventually, they had a mass combat with goblins and hill giants, and it was pretty epic. So anyway, you'll have to learn how to do that on your own, or I'll detail that in a later video, but we can figure that out. All right, and I already went over reaction rolls, and the last thing, so I guess this is already, since I went over reaction rolls, I kind of skipped. Reaction roll was supposed to be 9. The last thing, but one of the most important things to do, and you guys already know this because you probably only subscribe to my channel for this one thing, is one of the most important things you could use for your game is Appendix A. Probably I don't know, by far the most underappreciated section of all 5th edition. So, you know I don't need to rant on this. You already watched me do this and showed how to do it. So, that's just real quick. I'm going to go down the list again. I don't even need to explain this. I did use this for the club. Real quick, side initiative, roll every round, use morale. I did no skill check proficiencies. Your mileage may vary. Treasure hoards, rolling random. Actually, that's something I want to talk about. Let the players roll their treasure hoards. So whenever they had treasure, so whenever they rolled for their treasure on these charts, right? Where's it at? Whenever they rolled on this chart here, I said roll a D100, and they would actually get the giant ball that was the D100 and roll it, and it would roll forever. And they would and then it would be like, okay, roll 1D 4 times on Magic Table 8, and then they would just roll it out. And players love that. Highly recommend it. So anyway, side initiative, page 270 of DMG. Morale, page 273. No skill checks, magic items, or let them roll magic items. Try to look into doing artifacts and sentient magic items as well. That's really cool. Wandering monsters. This is on page 86 of the DMG. Henchmen, page 92 of the DMG. Mass combat, I'll have to detail at a different time. Reaction rolls, look into maybe basic fantasy or old school essentials for that reaction chart. I like that better than the 5th edition one. And Appendix A. Appendix A, page 290 of the DMG. So anyway, that's pretty much it. I know I ranted a lot. I hope you guys find something useful. That was 10 things that I did that actually we had a fantastic time, and the very end of the year had no satisfying ending. They end up having a random encounter with adult gold dragon and the sword Stormbringer after some issues, because it takes over the body. After some issues, ended up in the treasure hoard of that adult gold dragon. And that was the last session. So in the future, consider putting Stormbringer in the adult gold dragon's treasure hoard for your boy Crossface. That's pretty much it. Thanks for sticking around. 20-minute video. Probably ranted too much. I appreciate you guys. I hope to talk to you soon. Leave some comments. What do you guys want to see? I have a new kind of setup now. This is a new desk, new room. Before I didn't have any kind of space in my house. So leave some comments what you guys want to see, because I actually will go through, read them, address your questions, and we will make videos based off those questions. Thank you guys, and I'll see you soon.